is a Think Live Be production. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning to you as well.
What's up?
Where's my coffee? You guys, I really enjoy our morning coffees. It's my favorite thing. And then I also enjoy an afternoon coffee every now and then. Most days.
Yeah, most days, as long as I'm making it.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, but it tastes better when Pat is making it.
That is just not true.
It really is, though.
It's not true.
And he thinks that I just don't want to learn how to do the cappuccino machine.
You don't.
Well, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't, but that's not why.
Point proven.
I don't want to learn how to use the cappuccino machine, but I think that yours tastes better. So there's not incentive for me to learn.
So you're telling me start doing them poorly, and then I see how this goes. But you're so good at folding laundry.
But I appreciate each and every coffee that you make me.
You're welcome.
It is very much appreciated. It's needed to keep things moving along. Speaking of coffee, I just did have some, so I'm all wound up.
Oh, you did?
I did.
All right.
So we're going to talk about some stuff on this podcast episode. And specifically, so this podcast, if you're listening for the first time, welcome. Then you are listening. And welcome to it. We talk about real estate, primarily real estate related stuff, because I'm a realtor here in the Orlando area. And this is my husband, significant other, Patrick Fatika.
Hello.
He's the sound engineer, producer extraordinaire.
Yep. Thanks.
And he has been by my side for many years. How many years have we been together? 20?
Maybe a little more than that.
Oh, yeah, like 21. 21 years. This guy's been here listening to, almost all of it.
Biting my tongue.
Almost all of it. 18 of it. Listening to me talk about real estate. And so he has a lot to offer because he's learned so much through osmosis.
Oh, thank you.
And he's very opinionated about the things that he
just about stuff in general.
Just about stuff in general.
I've got my opinions. I've been doing stuff a long time.
Yeah. Well, I know. Yeah, you're an old.
I'm old. Got some experiences.
And we like to talk about not just real estate, but like, how to improve my business specifically. That's what we talk about most of the time.
And that's what the show was kind of born out of and started for.
Yeah, we just we're talking about how to do things better anyway.
Yep, we talked about it all the time. So we said, why don't we record this? And that's kind of how the whole show kind of started.
Yeah. So you're listening to Seeking the Best. Thanks for joining us. Today we're going to talk about a topic that I think is it's one of those things that is just part of business, and it's people unsubscribing. Like everybody, you're going to experience, if you run any kind of business, people, and let's qualify that. I mean, any kind of unsubscribing. I mean, you work with somebody and then they choose not to work with you again. You sign up, they get signed up for your email newsletter and then they physically unsubscribe. They stop returning your calls and they unsubscribe basically from talking to you. Like any kind of business is going to have some bit of business that's not recouped, like meaning that you're not going to have those repeat customers. And then there's going to be a lot of prospective customers that come into your organization, like they come to your website or they visit you at an open house or they enter your prospects database system and then they decide they don't want to be a part of it anymore. Like that is part of business, right? I'm not wrong, right?
Right. No, you're right. And I would assume that, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but I would assume that, some of it can affect your morale more than other rejection or other unsubscribes from people that, maybe you don't know at all versus, hey, I sold that person their house and now they don't want to hear from me anymore. That's going to hurt way more than...
But if you think about it as a business, I mean, and this is the problem with real estate as a profession, is that so often we are personally affected by things that happen.
Yeah, because a lot of agents don't have a business name. It's their name.
Well, it's
So
it
it's
feels
them.
more
It's
personal,
personal,
just because
right?
it's your name.
Or you are don't have an assistant. You're a single agent. So
It's
okay,
just
so
you
it's,
doing all the things.
yeah.
Yeah. But imagine, like, do you think, like, what's an email that you get to your inbox?
Like the thing from like Frank Lloyd Wright, like shop
Right.
or whatever.
Okay. So
We got one of those today.
yeah. So why? Because we purchased something from that store before.
Yeah, probably.
So you're now like a prospective future customer too. You're a past customer.
Sure. They want to let me know what's in the store that's new.
Yeah.
Right.
But what if you bought that for somebody as a gift?
Mm-hmm.
Then like after December, because I assume that's a Christmas gift. That's the only time people give gifts, right?
Right.
And then come January, you're going to unsubscribe from that for the most part. Now, some people will just leave it. They don't care. It just keeps coming into their inbox. They don't really look at it. It just keeps coming in. But you don't know, like when it's a business like that, do you think that Frank Lloyd Wright store cares if somebody unsubscribes today?
They only cared on day one when they didn't have, when their
I see what you're saying.
subscription list was like 6 people.
Yeah.
Right. But once you get up into the tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands, then no, you don't care at all. I would assume the same would be true with real estate.
But I mean, maybe for like large companies,
Yeah.
right? Like the size of your database dictates whether or not you care, I think.
Yeah.
If you think about it, because you have time to care.
Yeah.
If your database is too small,
Yeah.
then that one person unsubscribing feels so like such a hit.
Yeah.
But it happens. And like, I think that's
Sure. We get unsubscribes to the podcasts.
People unsubscribe from this podcast?
Yeah. They're all dead to us though.
Well, I was going to say, you're dead to me. But you're not hearing that if,
You know why we get unsubscribes?
why? Because people don't know what it is.
No, because people, after they listen, they figure it all out.
Oh,
And they don't need us anymore.
right. Or like truly, and because I'm being serious about this, like
They get out of
they
the
get
business.
out of the real estate
Yeah.
business.
We couldn't help them.
But I mean,
Yeah.
think about it. Like, do you know what the turnover rate is in the real estate industry?
I don't, but I know it's high.
Right. Like, I don't know off the top of my head either. But point is, there's plenty of people who subscribe to this podcast, subscribe to some email list, subscribe to, to learn more about how to do XYZ, and then it doesn't apply to them anymore. And so I think, like, if you specifically, like, let's break it down into 3 things. Well, 2. Let's break it down into 2. The unsubscribe of like a customer not doing repeat business with you, and then just physically like getting unsubscribes from like an email list or a smart plan or campaign that you put somebody on. So let's talk about that part first. Is that okay?
Yes. Of
Would that
course.
be okay with you, sir?
Yes. Go ahead.
So I think the biggest part about that is like, let's break it down even further. You've got prospective customers and then actual like people that you've done business with. When you meet somebody at an open house or they inquire about a listing on a website or call, and you put them on a smart plan or a campaign of some kind for follow-up, and they're getting automated emails, they didn't necessarily mean to sign up for that, right? Like, they should have known better. They were clicking on something online or whatever, but they didn't necessarily mean to sign up for that. Maybe they just wanted information about that one thing, and they already have a realtor. There's lots of different scenarios in that place, that world. So there's no reason to feel personally affected by that, because you don't know what their situation was. And they may not have been really a quality lead for you. They just happened to click on something, and then they went and talked to their brother, who's a realtor, and said, hey, can I see this property? So those types of unsubscribes really are just like, the only thing I think you should look into though is if it's a pattern. Like if every single person that's coming in as a lead is unsubscribing, then maybe there's not value in what's getting sent.
Or too much.
Or too much. Right.
Or too little.
Yeah. So actually I'll say, I was doing like a little mastermind thing today, and we were talking about like, ideas. And one of the ideas was to send like a weekly email to I think the idea was like to prospects like that inquired. I think that's too much. I think it's too much.
Yeah. When
you don't know what they need or want. So that could be, if you see a lot of unsubscribes happening, it could be that you're not sending the right content for that person. Mm-hmm. They got put on the wrong smart plan, right? So for example,
or you don't have enough smart plans. You've got one.
So this is an argument that I think a lot of people have had over the years, and I've listened to people debate of whether, like, you want to keep things simple. And so if you're going to have follow-up plans, you could simply have a buyer and a seller one. Mm-hmm. But I guess maybe it's because I come from a marketing education that I'm like, well, that's stupid because the buyer that wants a house in this neighborhood isn't the same buyer that wants a house in this other neighborhood.
Yeah.
And if they come to me on a website, then I'm not going to be communicating the same way as if they got referred from a friend. And so why would I have only one smart plan just because they're a buyer prospect?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you start with one.
Well, yeah.
Right? But as you, just like anything else, as you kind of become more experienced and the database gets bigger and bigger and bigger, then you have the if you're doing, like we've talked about before, tagging everything with the set number of tags and all of those things, then it's easy to separate them into different groups and then send stuff out to them that's more specific.
Yeah. Just like if you sign up for, if I go buy clothes tomorrow from a certain store, they're going to send me emails, but I guarantee that they'll send like different emails based on what I maybe clicked on the last time I was shopping.
Yes. Or what you've purchased or whatever. Yeah.
Now, do we have the ability to have such high level marketing as small to medium, like if you're single agent all the way to like a medium sized team? No, you don't have a marketing department to be able to do that, but you still can at least customize things slightly so that it's of value to the person that you're communicating with. Mm-hmm. So like I'm a big believer that not everyone should be on the same general, like, here's some real estate information. It's like, why do I care what the rates are or what the average home price sale is on one part of the county when for a fact I want to live on the other part of the county? Or like, here's some tips to get your house ready for sale, and I'm not a seller.
Right.
Like but it's really easy to just like hit start and say, okay, well,
I think it's okay if it is okay to just hit start and do that, I think, because for a lot of people, present company excluded, it's hard to just get started. It's hard to do any of that. So it's like, well, now I have to make sure that all of this stuff is perfect before I start sending this stuff out. Well, and my suggestion is just start sending stuff out. Chances are your brokerage, if you work at a decent sized brokerage, already has a bunch of information for you. You don't even have to look it up and stuff. Then after you get it out there and you start doing it, then you do what the next thing is, what Kathryn is talking about. But you've got to start just getting it out.
Okay, but then let's break.
Because I know what we're going with this is about unsubscribes and stuff. So I don't want to get too far in the weeds. But I was just making the point that you start thinking about like, well, does that person, and what about this? Well, that person, what group do I put that person in? And all of a sudden the whole day got away from you and you didn't send any of them out, because you're so worried about whether or not this person
I get
fit into
what you're saying. I'm not saying like, yes, you have to take action at some point, and you can't really build out a system and tags and all that when you don't have enough people, so you don't need 10 million different smart plans or 10 million different tags if you don't even have anybody in your database.
Well, even if you did, it's like, maybe that's just because of the way that my brain works as an artist. If I had a 15 by 15 foot canvas and I started to paint, I wouldn't start in the corner and get that part finished and then moved on to the next part and get that part. I'd work the whole thing at once and slowly over time get more detailed, put in more details, fix that part, get more details and more details. Yes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you would just work it. You're saying, yeah, but I've seen this kind of stuff happen before.
Can I say something though? because I believe what you're saying is correct and good advice, is that like just get started with something, but you can still be at least start with buyer and seller.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if they're neither, then don't send them stuff about buying and selling. Can you just do me that favor? Okay.
So three
different things. Your sphere list should be communicated with differently if they don't have buying and selling needs. Now, you still put offers in the email communication to them, but it's not necessarily like, here's tips to get your house ready for sale, because they don't care about that right now in their life.
Right.
And so it's a good way to get unsubscribed from, even from people who like you and know you. They're just like,
well, yeah, they're not unsubscribing because they are like, this is a bunch of garbage. They go, oh, this isn't for me.
But that's my point, is know your audience. But here's the other thing, and I think this part is something that I believe, like, I think we could do better, but also I think that most people skip this part, is like making sure that people know that they're going to get something in the first place. It's like you're setting the expectation that, hey, by doing this, you're going to now get follow-up emails. And even with your sphere, whenever you're going to start something new with your sphere, I think it's a good idea to, like, I'm talking about an email campaign or some sort of system that you're going to put them on, is I think it's a good idea to reach out to each of them and let them know, like, hey, I just sent you an email with X. Like, I just sent you an email with some market information for your specific neighborhood. I'm curious to see what you think. Like, let them know you want feedback on it, because they're less likely to unsubscribe if you, first of all, you're telling them it's coming, so they know when they see it. Because sometimes when you're doing email campaigns, it should show your name. Like, every system is different, but it should show your name, but it's not necessarily going to say your email address, and you just don't know how that's going to show up on their end. And so let them know it's coming, or send it and then immediately text and say, hey, I just sent you an email with some information I thought you'd find helpful, and I'm just curious, I'd love to get your feedback on it.
Yeah, that's good, because I mean, if you're treating your sphere like we talk about, you're already in touch with them regularly as it is, and they're your street team, right? They're the ones out there looking out for you, waiting for their friends who need a realtor to mention your name. So when you say ask for them to get involved in the email that you send, they're more likely to do it. They're more likely to read it, because you're kind of asking for their help, because they're a part of this, right? It's why we do the special events and all that thing, because then they all show up and they see they're a part of something, and it's just good for morale.
Yeah.
You know?
Sorry, my brain, I just realized I emailed somebody that I'm not sure is going to see that email. Wait, has school gotten out yet? No, it's still in. Okay. Sorry. Do you ever have those moments where you're like, oh no,
what month is it?
What day?
Is that what you mean?
Yeah. But anyways, I guess my point is just like when you sign up for, like, when you order clothes, you have the option to receive special offers and information. And if you check that box, then you know you're going to get that.
A lot of times that box is already checked and you have to uncheck the box.
Yes, correct. But that's good marketing, because, but the point is, I remember going to, like, Mega Camp or Family Reunion several years ago, and somebody was like, what would it be like if you had a database that had all opted in? Like, they truly were in it and wanted to receive your information. And I think about that sometimes, is like, how do you get complete buy-in? Well, first of all, you can't, right? We already said, like, some people are just going to decide this isn't for, they don't need this anymore. There are people that, well, let's get into that in the second half.
Okay.
We'll separate the two things.
Okay.
But imagine what that would be like. So then every time you meet with somebody and have an appointment, you should let them know that this is how, like, we work with people for life. And so we're going to do this first, and we're going to make this out. And then we're going to do this. Like, you're going to be in our VIP program where we send out monthly emails with this information, and, like, we're excited about it. And you're telling them before you ever even help them that this is part of your process, then they're less likely to unsubscribe when they get that first email after they close.
If you never mention it and you don't create the family type, we're a team sort of vibe, that we're your realtors for life. We've got special events. We do different contests, we have raffles, we do ice cream socials, and all of this stuff. And then, of course, anything you ever need, we're there with all of the information. We have vendors for everything. We will be in contact with you basically forever, right? And if you don't do that, and you're just like, well, they were nice, I guess I'll put them on my email list, and then you send them something 6 weeks after they close, and they go, and it's a bunch of house prices in the neighborhood. They're gonna go unsubscribe.
Well,
you see what I mean? Like what the difference of those two things are, like what Kathryn's talking about versus just putting people on a email list.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is about our recent purchase.
Ours.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And
I know what you're gonna say, but the listeners don't.
What do you think I'm gonna say? Let's see if you can read my mind.
I'll tell you after you say it.
Okay. Wait. Then we don't know if you really got it.
I'll be honest.
Okay. I guess I trust you. And what I was gonna say is, like, we're still receiving the drip email of listings.
Yeah.
That match our criteria.
Like, we have to wait. We can unsubscribe, but we shouldn't have to, and that's certainly not what should be mailed to us.
But so here's the thing: like, I like our agent. There was nothing wrong, but I said, like, well, I don't need this anymore, right? And so, like, what happens when I unsubscribe from that email?
You're gone.
Then you're not going to send me any more email because I've unsubscribed. Like, you're not allowed to. Now, what would be the difference would be, like, you take me off of that list and you let me know at closing, like, hey, I took you off the emails with new properties, but I am going to send you market information about your neighborhood so that you can see how the home values are stacking up over the years, and it'll keep your pulse on the market. It'll help you keep your pulse on the market.
Between that and we've got, whatever it is, we send out quarterly email with, like, special events that are going on and blah 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 and all of that stuff.
Now, if I had said I want to buy another property immediately, don't take me off the list, then that's different.
That's different. But yes, and so what happens is we're still getting emails, sometimes 2 a day, that are this house in the area went down in price $10,000.
Right, we're like, all the other houses are coming down in price.
And that just that over and over and over again. But never once did we get an email saying, hey, thank you so much. This is what we do. This is what we're going to do for you moving forward, and blah, blah.
Oh, can I tell you another one?
Yeah.
Okay. So
I knew that's what you were going to kind of get into, but I thought it was more like we didn't get put on a different plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was the weird part about it. And especially where we bought this house, where there's a lot of vacation rentals. And so there's a lot of information that would be helpful for us that we could get, and stuff that I have to go search out myself. But if I was getting an email about that stuff.
Well, so that was the next thing I was going to say. So, and again, you can't have, if vacation rentals aren't your specialty, that doesn't mean you can't ever sell a vacation rental. It just means that you're not going to have that content to be able to send out.
Right.
So it's not going to happen, but you could still do something different and not run the risk of that person unsubscribing because they feel like, I don't need this anymore.
Right.
This isn't helpful.
Right.
So the mortgage company that we used for that purchase, I'm on some sort of drip campaign from them, but it's all about, like, it's almost as if it's designed for first-time home buyers. It's like really low-level home ownership comments and notes. And it's like, look, they're a great mortgage company. Like, before we bought that house, I'm familiar with them from selling real estate down here. It's a great mortgage company. And they actually have really good marketing. But I'm like, I haven't unsubscribed because I feel bad, but I'm going to at some point, because at some point I'm going to be like, all right, that's enough. Like, I don't need this information. It's not helpful to me because I bought this as an investment, and I know you know that.
Yeah.
So why are you sending me emails about, like, first-time home buyer stuff?
Yeah, I know. And
I know why you are, because that's the only smart plan you have, right? So
right, that's exactly right. That's the only smart plan.
But that's my point, is people unsubscribe for a lot of reasons. Number one is that they feel like they don't need the information anymore. And that, I guess that's the same as number 2. They don't find value in the information.
Right. It is.
So they move to a different stage in your cycle, and you didn't change up the information being provided. That's the number one reason probably people unsubscribe.
The person who hasn't purchased a house should not be getting the same email once every 2 weeks or whatever as the people who have bought and sold with you. They should not be getting the same email.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that needs to be, it's like that makes perfectly logical sense. So if you are getting unsubscribes, look for a pattern, right? You said if it's happening frequently, I think you can even go a little bit deeper and look for a pattern. Like, who are the people that are unsubscribing? What is it about? Is there a connection with them? And then if there is, that's the hole that needs to be filled. You know, you just have to be aware. A lot of times people just aren't aware.
Yeah.
You know, they don't pay attention to it and stuff. So anyway, you want to take a quick break?
Sure.
All right, let's take a break.
The Think Live Be team is an Orlando-based real estate team with Keller Williams Realty at the Parks. We operate as a boutique-style company with the resources of the largest real estate company behind us. Think Live Be is looking for talented people like you to join our team. If you happen to live in the Orlando area and you're a detail-oriented quick learner, then we might have a place for you. Whether you're a real estate agent or administrative professional, we are looking for individuals who are ready to work hard and ready for success. If you're ready to join the team, visit us at thinklivebe.com.
And we're back.
Welcome back.
Welcome.
So as promised, the second part, because I kind of divvied that up, and one part of unsubscribing, I think, is like the physical act of unsubscribing from like an email campaign or some sort of smart plan that someone's been put on. And the other act of unsubscribing is that you just don't repeat business with somebody. Like they unsubscribe from you as their realtor, essentially.
Yeah.
That one can sting for sure. And even if you had a large business, like we said with the emails, like the larger your database, the less you really notice or care.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, well. But when it comes to sales, like especially if you worked with them personally, then it feels personal and it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like every business experiences that. In fact, and do not quote me on this stat. Like I should probably have looked this up before we got into this episode, but I remember, I'll just put it this way. I remember reading somewhere like in the last 5 years that about, I want to say it was 14% of your past clients will like leave you and do business with somebody else. And it wasn't specific to real estate. It was just a business stat.
Yeah.
And that actually is not that bad if you think about it.
Yeah.
But I'll look that up and like we'll throw it in the candy bag and like what's the actual stat on that. But the point, like for today's day and age, but the point is that there's going to be some fallout where people just don't choose to work with you again, even if you were amazing and they thought you were in the moment. And here's like a number of reasons. Number one of their family members or friends gets their real estate license. That's like the number one reason.
Boo.
Now, you can still be their realtor of choice even when that happens.
Yeah, you probably will be if you work it right. That's happened to Kathryn multiple times.
It's happened multiple times where I still am their agent, even though they tell me like my best friend just got their real estate license, but they know that I've been working with you for years and that you're my realtor. But then the other has happened too, where I worked with somebody, had a great experience, and they called me and let me know, like, I'm so sorry, but our best friend, and like, we have to use him and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's inevitable. Then the other part of that is the weird ones. Well, but before we get to the weird ones, there's the middle ones. There are going to be people where you had a good experience, but they unsubscribed to some communication. Right. And so because they didn't get all of remember we talk about in order for people to remember who you are and do business with you again, you really need like 40 touches a year. And that gets to the point where you're in their head so much that they think of you when they think of real estate. So let's say that your 40 touch plan includes 4 calls, 4 social media messages, 12 emails, 12 direct mail. Now, you know they're getting the direct mail because you know where they live. You call them every quarter religiously, but you sometimes skip on the social media because you're actually not Facebook friends with them. And so you just don't do those extra touches. and they unsubscribed from your follow-up email the minute they closed on their house because you accidentally sent them something that wasn't useful to them.
Mm-hmm.
So they're really not getting 40 touches. They're getting maybe 12.
And it's not enough.
Maybe 16.
Mm-hmm.
It's not enough for you to still be in their mind over time. And again, they're not going to buy a house tomorrow. They're going to buy a house in 7 to 10 years, maybe. So at some point they may, and at some point they change their phone number. And then all of a sudden, the only thing they're getting is the direct mail.
Mm-hmm.
And then they move to a P.O. box and your mail's getting sent back. So that kind of stuff happens too, where you just lose touch because they did unsubscribe in some communication. So that happens in the middle where you had a really busy year and you just didn't do all of your touches, and then they unsubscribe from some of it anyways. And so they end up selling with somebody else. Then you have sometimes you have the people who end up listing, you help them buy a house and they end up listing with somebody else who they think or perceive as a neighborhood expert. And so they think that they still like you and they would do business with you again, but
this person lives here.
They feel like that matters.
Yeah.
And you even maybe put it out there that I'm the neighborhood expert in this neighborhood. And so they perceive you as not their go-to person to list a house. They had a great experience on the buying side, but they weren't willing to work with you on the next deal because they thought there was somebody there. Well, let's put it this way. There was somebody that was more present in their mind for what they needed in that moment.
Yes.
So there's those scenarios. And then there's the final one, which is the weird ones.
Yeah. The weird people, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of them out there.
I've had some weird ones.
Yeah.
And I would say, I don't think this is bragging to say that I think I give people a really great experience.
Well, you've had people that you've given really great experience to. They've shown up to client events and gotten free pies and then turned around and listed their house with somebody else.
Well, I don't know if anybody's come to the client appreciation party and then listed with someone else.
I'm thinking of one that I know of that came to the Christmas party and then did something else. We'll talk about it later.
Okay, I really want to know who it is. But so and then I forgot this is kind of the same as the family member one, but they get their own license. That's happened.
That has happened.
It happens.
Yeah. The experience was so good
that they went out and got their own real estate license. And yeah, I've had that happen where now they're in commercial business, but they still do their own residential sales.
Yeah.
But I sold their house. I helped them buy a new place. And then she got her commercial license, and they've since done 3 or 4 more deals, but I wasn't a part of them because she didn't need me anymore. And that doesn't mean that she didn't think it was awesome and that she wouldn't refer me business. In fact, she has for residential sales in the future. So I don't throw people away just because it seems like they might not need my services anymore. The people who have told me their best friend got their real estate license, they're still in my database. The people who've gotten their license themselves are still in my database, because at some point that might change, and I'm not going to just throw out their information. I just keep my eye on it and I review, regularly, who do I need to call and keep in touch with. But then there's the weird ones, and I've had some really weird ones. Not a lot, but I'll give you 3 examples. How's that? And that might be the only 3 that really exist, but I just want you guys to hear that, even after all these years, and again, I think that the experience that I give people and our team gives people is high level, 5-star all the way. We had there was one couple that bought a house, and they were super nice throughout the entire transaction. And I thought that we were getting along great, and I still think we did. And we closed and everything was great and they were super happy and all of that. And they got something in the mail and then an email. And he called me and said that he wanted to unsubscribe from everything.
You mean like a postcard?
Yeah.
In the mail.
And he didn't want to receive any communication from us. And he said, if we ever need anything in the future, we've got your number. Don't call. Or actually, I might have called him on my quarterly call.
And don't forget, Kathryn spent years building a VIP program where, people get coffee perks, they get free gift cards to Starbucks, they get tickets to the hockey games, we do raffles every single month where there's $100 or more of gifts that are given away that people can sign up for. We do photo contests, we give away big ceramic grills when once a year. There's multiple client events and ice cream socials and stuff, and he doesn't want to be a part of any of it. So, like, to the point where it's like, don't even send me a postcard.
Now, in fairness,
it's weird, right?
I don't think that at this particular person I'm talking about, I don't think we were doing that at the time. Like, it was just like a direct mail piece. And
I thought it wasn't that long ago.
This is a different one.
Oh, you haven't gotten to that
another one.
Okay.
But this one, I thought it was really strange because we had gotten along so great and they seemed so happy. And it felt in the moment like personally offensive. Like, all right, then I guess I won't ever call you again. Sorry for bothering you. And what stunk was that, I guess it didn't stink, but like, they actually had bought that property from somebody who was doing like a foreign investor, and I actually needed to send them some tax information, and they had unsubscribed from our, like, we always send out tax information anyways, but for them I was like, I really feel like I need to give them this important tax information, but he had unsubscribed from everything and made it very clear, like, don't call me. If I need something, I'll call you. So I don't know how that turned out.
Yeah.
And then, so that's one.
I can tell you how it turned out. They never called.
Well, no, they haven't called. And because they won't remember. I mean, we know the stats is like, the National Association of Realtors tracks this stuff. And people always say that they would use their realtor again, if they could remember their name. Like, that's how the stats line up.
Because it's like, it could be 10, 15 years later.
Well, right. It's like, that's why we're keeping in touch. But again, if you don't, because this was a while ago, like, if you don't tell people like why and not for your benefit, for their benefit, like, you know what's going to come
what
up.
I was saying
as a new
before the
homeowner,
break. Yeah.
A bunch of stuff is going to come up in your life where you're going to actually wish that we were in communication. Yeah. And so I'm just proactive, and I reach out to make sure that you've got everything you need. All the way down from like vendors. It's like, can you imagine, like, they probably have done stuff to their house and have had to just like Google vendors instead of calling somebody to find a trusted vendor that they could count on to do a good job, because we've worked with them thousands of times. Yeah. But for whatever reason in that moment, he thought he didn't need that. And I guess at that time, maybe I didn't explain well enough.
Or leading up to that time.
Or leading up to it, like through the process.
Right. That's the important part, is through the process, so that it's not like when you guys are at the closing and everything's done, they're like, well, it was so nice meeting you, right? That would never get said, because we're going to be on the phone with each other in a couple weeks. Yeah. Right. So if through the process, explain that to everybody that's in your sphere as you're going through, as you're getting repeat or new clients and stuff, that is going to make that so much easier, because they know what to expect. Yeah. Right. If you just don't say anything about it and then just start sending emails, people will be like, why is she sending me emails? We just bought a house. Yeah. Right. They're not even looking at it. They're like, what? Like,
yeah. Well, so two more examples.
It's not a two more.
The other one, the second one that you're thinking of, wasn't that long ago. So here's the difference with him. And so if you're listening and you're a single agent, understand that if you have the desire to grow a team, what happens is you will start to, like, a team is supposed to leverage your time and make more revenue for the business. And so they're going to start working with customers that you won't actually have met, or you've maybe met, but you weren't really involved in the sales side of it.
Right. You talked to them a couple times maybe.
Yeah. So that happened once, not that long ago, where I got a call. Actually, I think I called this guy too. So I called, and the guy, he was actually rude. And so it's hard enough, not to feel personally offended when somebody unsubscribes. I understand that. But most of the time when it's like an email or something like that, it's like, whatever, I get it. You're not like, whatever. But when you're physically on the phone with the person and they're telling you, I'm going to unsubscribe from you That's a little bit harder to swallow.
That guy's just a dick.
Well, so he really was rude. And so much to the point where I was like, I think you're mistaken of who's calling. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, I think that's how the conversation went. I was like, I think you're mistaken. Like, that's not like, do you remember me? Like, we met. And he's like, no, I know who you are. And like, I can't give a good answer. Like, sometimes people are just crazy.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes people are just rude. Sometimes people just have a bad day. I don't know why somebody would want to unsubscribe from like ever hearing from their realtor again. It's like, it's like going to the dentist and then being like, you know what? Don't follow up with me for a checkup in 6 months. I don't want to hear from you again. I'll reach out to you if I want to check up. Like, it's insane.
Yeah.
I don't know why I always use the dentist.
I don't know either.
I don't even like the dentist.
I know. I don't know why you bring it up.
I don't go that often. But like in that situation, I called for my normal quarterly call and I was checking in. I think his home anniversary had just happened and I was just checking in to see how the house was going and if he needed any vendor recommendations or anything. And he was just really abrupt and rude and was like, no, I don't need anything and I don't want to receive any more of your mail and you can stop emailing me and blah, blah, blah. And it was just like, whoa, this is Kathryn from the Live B team. I think you have the wrong person.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's like, okay, so it's one of two things, right? It's like there's that one thing of like, look, I know what you're doing, that you're just trying to stay in touch with me so that you can get repeat business. Like, I understand how sales work, right? In which case, if you understand how sales work, then you would never say, stop sending me stuff. Just same way that when you get on the phone with the guy at Spectrum to cancel something and he tries to sell you an Android phone, he's just doing his job.
Well, Pat,
it's part of the job.
So yeah, no, 100%. Like,
you know, so it's like, so it's not that. So it must just be like.
But so this particular person, like I had met at least once and I think maybe twice. So it wasn't like I completely didn't have a connection. But I did not know him. Like I didn't show him property and so I didn't establish like a stronger relationship. And so he's just a jerk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Maybe that's just who he was. And I just didn't know that. And so it came across like, wow, I'm sorry we're sending you a nice thing in the mail,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But anyways, that's one. And then most recently was the most bizarre one. And I don't know the answer, but this is another team one. Like we send out mail. So we got something returned in the mail and
like a return to sender.
Yeah.
Kind of
not
thing?
A return to send, like
refused.
Not refused. That would be insane. But that has happened before on like other direct mail. No, like that the person didn't live there anymore.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And so I looked it up to see what was going on. Cause this person just bought a house like a year ago. Not even like, I'm not even sure it's a full year. And I looked it up and I'm like, sure enough, that person sold their property and we didn't list it. And so I reached out to the buyer's agent and I was like, did you know that so-and-so like already sold their property like 6 months after? And obviously there's question marks there that we don't know the answer to.
They didn't know.
No.
The buyer agent didn't know.
And we don't know.
Well, why would you really?
Obviously there wasn't communication happening there, or we would have.
I was just going to say if the touches are happening the way they're supposed to, you should have known that. So somebody like there was only a one-way touch, which was an email or a postcard or whatever, but there wasn't social media contact with a back and forth, and there wasn't a phone call that happened in the 6 to 8 months that it took.
What's interesting is
so someone's in trouble. I don't know who it is, but someone's in trouble.
Well, what's interesting though is the person sold to Open Door or OfferPad, one of those like iBuyer programs.
They thought they were going to save money.
No. I mean, they definitely lost money.
Well, that's what I mean. No. I knew they were going to lose money. No one buys a house and sells it 6 months later and makes money. But if you can sell it and pay a much lower percentage, because
you don't pay a lower percentage on that.
Oh, you don't?
No, you pay like a fee that's what am I trying to say? That's
comparable
to a realtor commission.
Oh, okay. I thought for some reason it was one of the limited service, like a limited service.
No,
thing.
like
Okay.
they buy the property, but you pay.
Oh yeah.
You pay their fee,
I
which
gotcha.
is like very comparable.
I gotcha.
If not the exact same.
Yeah.
As what you would
Yeah,
expect
so
to pay.
Open Door just buys the house from you.
Yeah, and then they list it for sale.
Right.
So she absolutely lost money, and probably a substantial amount.
Yeah.
And so then you have to wonder, like, what happened there? Like, obviously there was some sort of urgent need to get that sold.
Needed the money right that second.
But didn't contact the
see if there's
realtors
a
who
way.
just
Yeah.
closed. So that's bizarre, right? And so stuff is going to happen. And you should question, by the way, like you should always question when somebody unsubscribes and decides not to work with you, or decides, in my first two examples, where they just didn't want information. Like those people haven't sold yet. So we'll see if they call.
Yeah.
If they do remember to call. But when somebody sells and didn't even reach out, like you should question that scenario and try to find out why. And come from a place of like, it is fully understandable to call up somebody that you just worked with and say, I noticed you sold your property and I'm just curious, why didn't you reach out to me?
Yeah. I want to know if I could have done anything different.
How could I,
to have earned the listing.
It's feedback.
Yeah.
It's feedback. So, but the point of all of this is like, it's going to happen. And the way that you avoid those things from happening is, I think it all comes back to expectations. Like even in the examples that I gave where people, like maybe the one guy's just a jerk. I don't know. But I also probably, if I'm thinking like seek my best, I probably could have done a better job following up with him after closing, because that team member is no longer on the team.
Right.
And there was probably a gap in there.
Yes.
Where communication wasn't happening that needed to happen to continue, so that it didn't just feel like I'm getting this mail and email from somebody that doesn't really follow up with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was a gap. And also I'm going to guess that the system of we'll be your realtors for life. This is what we do.
Oh, right. The team member probably did not do any
promoting
of
what the team and what it does and what it will continue to do after you close, because if he was like, oh no, I don't want anything to do with you guys, right? What if that would have been like, what if he said that to the other team member, but I just didn't know? Right.
Right. Like maybe he had a bad experience and I just didn't even know.
And you don't know about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So stuff like that can happen as you grow and you leverage things and you expect people to deliver the same experience in the same way.
Yeah.
Stuff is going to fall through the cracks. And part of the job is to make sure that the system and plan is duplicatable and that it's being done and that people are held accountable if it's not being done that way. But like you'll figure that out. Like there's this messy part, maybe.
Yeah.
We'll maybe figure it out. But there's this messy part where you're trying to make sure that that's happening while still selling houses and stuff. So, and as a single agent, it's going to happen too. Like it's just going to happen. And sometimes you won't get the answer and it'll drive you nuts, but you just have to remember that it's just business. And there are like Open Door or OfferPad, for example, they advertise a solution that people believe works for them, right? And so they may not have reached out because they thought, I need to sell this tomorrow.
Right.
I need to choose my own closing date. And this person does that. That's what this company does. And I'm just going to call them.
Right. And or that they didn't think of you as a resource at all. Like, well, maybe, but if that doesn't work, then we'll call Open Door. Because if they would have done that, you could have said, well, we can do that.
Well, right. But that's the thing too, is like, do people understand beyond closing that no matter what questions you have, call me first? Yeah. There are a lot. And like, this is part of expectation setting beyond closing.
Kathryn gets phone calls on a monthly basis from people who are planning on doing additions to their house.
Oh, yeah.
Or redoing their kitchen or whatever it happens to be, to ask Kathryn questions first before they do it, because she presents as a resource forever for anything, right? So it's why our contractors get so much business.
Yeah.
Because we send them to every time Kathryn's phone rings, which is a lot where people are asking for stuff. We're always sending people to them.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, if people know, like, for example, somebody has asked me to do a market analysis for a different date and time. Like sometimes people will need it for divorces. Sometimes people need it for probate, like they need a CMA done for the time when that person passed away or the time that the divorce happened, so that they can see what was the actual market value at that moment in time to distribute funds or do whatever it needs to do. And people know that they can count on me to help with those things for free. And that's part of the service that I provide to our clients and customers. So they know they can count on me for anything. And so they do. And sometimes things that I'm like, well, that's really not my department, but XYZ, because I'd rather them call me and ask like a silly question. You know what? That reminds me of an example of something. So I had these people that closed on a property, and like the next week their sink like fell out of the countertop, and they called, and at first I think my assistant at the time answered the phone and thought that they were like upset. And then I reached back out. And so, of course, then I thought they were upset, like me, because somehow it was my fault that their sink fell out of the bottom of the cabinet. But then I realized, no, they just wanted advice. They just didn't know what they were supposed to do.
Right.
Who to call. Like, do you call a plumber? Do you call a handyman? Like,
right.
What do we do?
Not to call, like, I'm suing somebody who's in trouble. Like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Like, oh, our power won't come on. The alarm won't stop beeping. And you think that people are asking you because they're like mad that it's happening. And it's like, no, they just don't know. And you want those kind of questions because it means that they think of you as a resource for anything. And I'd rather they call and ask those questions, because then I'm on the phone with them and I'm keeping that relationship going and showing them that I am their answer to whatever real estate questions that they have.
Remember, like that doesn't happen to us as much anymore because we're more seasoned and you're our realtor, so you already have the answer. But when we bought this house, we had those bees that built that hive underground outside, and we were like, who do we call for this? I had no idea. I had to look around online and call the city and some beekeepers and trying to figure out how to get.
I don't remember who was it. It was just the city.
The city ended up coming out on accident.
Oh, right. But they fixed the problem.
They fixed the problem. Yeah.
Well, there's your answer though. If you're listening,
call the city. Yeah.
Well, like if it's like a public utility.
Yeah, because they had built a giant nest in the water meter.
Yeah.
Like, because no one had lifted the lid of the water meter in for however long, and so there were just a gigantic nest in there. So in order for them to check the meter, they had to get rid of the bees.
Yeah.
So it just so happened. And we had just bought the house. So they that's probably maybe a thing that they do, or it was a coincidence.
I think it was a coincidence.
Yeah. So crazy.
Yeah. But anyway, so I think that's the thing, is just set expectations with people so they know what you're going to be sending and how you're going to communicate. That's the best way to put it. How am I going to communicate with people all the way from the time that they inquire about real estate all the way to closing and everything in between? And if they know what to expect, they're less likely to unsubscribe or want you to stop calling them.
Ladies and gentlemen, the question you are about to hear is true. Only the names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Questions from the web.
Question from the web. My friends and I are planning to team up after getting our real estate licenses. We're interested in structuring ourselves with equal share of income and expenses. Everyone contributes and benefits equally. Split responsibilities based on strengths. We each focus on areas where we excel. Unified branding. We present ourselves as a cohesive team to clients. Curious if you've ever had experience with a team like this. We haven't found much online. Your inputs are appreciated.
Okay. So I have some experience in a partnership, which is essentially what you're describing. And
they're calling it a team, but in the lexicon of real estate, what you're talking about is a partnership, not a team.
I think that's how I would describe it. I mean, team semantics, Yeah. But if you're divvying up income and expenses equally, what you're creating is a three-way partnership. And so my experience with a partnership many years ago, I don't know if I'm sure I've talked about it at some point on the podcast, but there was another agent in my office who was a great person, still friends, and she's great, but she wanted to list a short sale property. And I had experience with short sales. And so she came to me and asked me if I would partner up with her on that short sale. And so we did. And then she was like, hey, I really like working with you. Do you want to work together? And I was like, okay, cool. And so we started a team, except it really was just two people doing the same activities.
Trying to hold each other accountable.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was a conversation.
Yeah. And so we were not splitting up activities based on strengths, by the way. We were just both lead generating, both going on appointments, both writing offers. There wasn't like this person's doing listings, this person's doing buyers. And so what you end up with in that kind of situation is just basically whatever the two people can do, right? Like I don't think you can double or triple your income. Now you can maybe get a little bit further because you've got accountability in that other person, but essentially it's just two people doing the exact same thing every day that they would do if they were an individual agent.
Right. I just want to say something real quick.
Uh-huh.
This is a question posed to you, but mostly to the person who wrote it.
Uh-huh.
What happens when the three of you are 6 months in and one of you guys have 8 sales under your belt? The other one's got 1 and the other one has 0.
Well, you didn't let me finish what I was going to say next.
Okay.
Okay. So in a partnership, so back to, I'll get there, Pat. I'll get there.
Okay.
So in my scenario, though, we were both salespeople and both admin people. Okay. So we were just going to do whatever business we were going to do as single agents.
We're just going to be next to each other.
We were just going to be next to each
Right.
other doing it. And
then put the money in the pot for marketing was probably the right.
Right. Only we made some bad decisions on that.
Right.
But that's a whole nother thing. But anyways, that did not exist very long. And here's what I'll tell you what happened very quickly. And then this could be like a whole nother episode. Very quickly, I wanted to go further and do like have a bigger business. And so I wanted to explore other lead generation activities.
Right.
And I don't think that she wanted to do that.
Your goals were
My goals exceeded her goals.
They weren't aligned.
They were not aligned. Good point. Now, she's a great person and we're still friends, and she's no longer in the real estate business because I think she realized, like, I don't want to do what Kathryn's describing.
Yeah.
That sounds terrible.
And she was right.
And so she left. We called it at the time she retired, but she really didn't retire. She's not that old of a person. But she left, and then I continued and started building a team the way the MREA model suggests, which is where there's one leader and you're building admin first, because having admin support allows you to grow your sales faster because you're not bogged down in the day-to-day minutia. And you're able to do potentially what you're going to do best. So my problem with this idea is it sounds like you're going to divvy up the responsibilities based on strengths, which means somebody's going to end up being administrative support. And do not take this the wrong way. To all of the admins and operations people, I think you're all amazing. And you can pay for admin support at a much lower level than what would be earned income
as a percentage.
As a salesperson. Salespeople, you're doing the negotiation, the client experience, that work in any industry across the board, not just real estate, you will make more money. So if you take all of your income from the three of you and then you just divvy it out equally, you're overpaying the person who's responsible for the admin. And I know, like, again, I say all of that with understanding that I love our admin people. You want to treat them well and pay them as much as you can, but I wouldn't start a team.
But there's formulas.
But you could just
for how much money, what you're supposed to do with profit.
You could all three go out and be salespeople and hire an admin, and share in that expense and do way better than saying I'm going to divvy up our responsibilities based on what we're good at, which means that you're going to be overpaying for some of the job duties that somebody's going to be doing. Yeah. And then the other part of that is what you just said. So what if
you don't align?
Well,
you get into it for 6 months and you realize that Craig wants to own his own team and have 40 agents, and Bill can't wait to go to Europe, right? So then what?
Yeah. Well, and then even on the buy side, if you divvy up your responsibilities, then understand that you might be overpaying on the buyer's agent side too. There's less job responsibilities than if you're talking about one person's the CEO and listing agent, because that's what their like skills align with best. Well, that person in a business model would be paid more, right? Like in any business, because they're going to be helping grow the business. So I think the setup of this is going to lead to a point where there's resentment because somebody's going to be doing the bulk of the sales and they're not going to be making enough income for a salesperson in this business.
Go watch an older show on HBO called Silicon Valley. And look at what happens when a group of friends get together to start a business and they're all responsible for their strengths and how that works. It's like what you could do, right? You don't want to just tell these people, here's everything you're doing wrong and there's no solution to it. What you could do is start as individual agents, do your own business, work out of the same office, hold each other accountable, do script practice together. All of those things that you would get from being in a team atmosphere. Hire an admin, share the admin, hire a TC, share the TC, until you build up to the point in which you can build your own teams. But that's as a team. As a group, you could grow it to where you are all so successful that you all come together as a group, hire a CEO that runs the company, and you guys back out and are 7th level. Right. That's where you would grow that to. But
well, my thing is like one of you is probably the one who's got the most drive and sales acumen and maybe is more of a visionary and is maybe the one deciding like, hey, this seems like a really good idea. We should do this. And then we could do this. And you're the one kind of like pulling the strings.
You're really good at Photoshop. You should do our marketing.
And you're probably the one who should start the business. But the problem is you don't have any revenue, so you can't actually hire people to do the things. But you want to just like form this group so that you guys can all hang out together and have fun together and do this thing. But what you're going to end up with is a business that's not successful because it's not built off of any kind of business model. Like it doesn't exist in too many. Like if you think of all the different companies, like there was always like one person who founded it and created it and then found talented people to do the things in the business. And it doesn't mean the talented people can't get paid well or whatever, but the visionary person is the one leading it and deciding and making the decisions. And if you have 3 people that are equally making the same income, equally sharing in the expenses, and you think they're doing all the jobs equally, well, who's the one that's actually growing the business? And you're the one who's actually doing the most work. So why would everybody get paid equally?
Right.
That's what's going to end up happening. Not initially. Initially, you'll just all be individual agents, like working and figuring it out.
But the next step.
Eventually, you're going to want to grow and like, okay, we should do this. We should bring on other people. And there's not going to be any revenue left over
to be able to
do that because you've been overpaying for the people doing the other stuff.
Yeah. So there you go. That's a tough one, guys.
Slow in. Slow in. Slow in.
Small win. Kathryn, what's your small win this week?
Well, I got some new clothes this week, and I haven't bought any new clothes for myself, and I don't know when. Can you name a time recently?
It's been probably a year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Probably for our wedding. Like I had to buy a outfit for
dress.
I had to buy a dress for the wedding, but then I also
only got worn once. Can you believe that?
But yeah, I haven't really like treated myself lately, and so I bought myself 5 new tops and 2 new pairs of pants.
Yep,
and that's it.
That's good. I've been trying to tell her to that she's not done. Like that's what happens is she'll do this and then she just won't buy any more. And she'll wear those until those clothes are all worn out and be like, oh, I don't have any clothes. And I said to her, when we're watching TV, when I'm making dinner or something like that, she'll pull out the iPad, and I've got her started to put bookmarks in and to do just like clothes shopping, but not buy anything, and just put it into bookmarks.
Except all that stuff will be gone the next time I actually want to buy clothes.
And then quarterly, every quarter,
buy myself something
we're
nice.
going to buy little sets of clothes and stuff. And then maybe you'll have enough that you can take the other stuff in and get it cleaned. That'd be fun.
How dare you?
And my small win is I got out in the yard this week for the first time. It's been since the wedding.
No.
Yeah. Since the wedding.
That doesn't seem accurate.
It is.
He's in the yard all the time.
No,
I know what
listen,
you mean.
Yes. What I mean is we went to the nursery and I got little crepe myrtle and some other plants and pine straw and finished one of the beds in the backyard, but I haven't done anything like that, planted anything in the backyard or done any of that stuff since before the wedding last year.
Yes.
So it was nice.
And it looks beautiful.
Yeah, it looks nice and finished. There's been trees in it, but it's just been dirt and stuff, and just finishing it off with all the little details, and now a big section of the backyard is finished.
For our new listeners, Patrick loves plants.
Yeah.
He loves to put plants in.
Yes, I do. I work from home. So when I take breaks throughout the day, I grab my little hand shears and I walk around and I pull weeds and prune some things and make my way through the yard. And then I come back in and I work again. And it's just a way for me to kind of decompress.
He's listening to his podcast and just laughing to himself.
I've got Comedy Bang Bang on and I'm just laughing my head off. Hey guys, remember to rate and review us on iTunes. It really helps new listeners to find us. Send your questions from the web to onseekingthebest@gmail.com. Leave us a Spotify voicemail with your questions and we'll play it on the show. All info is in the show notes. And for Kat and myself, thanks for listening, and we'll figure this all out next week.
Bye.
This has been a Think Live Be production.